Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg. We're in game number 1 on Ultra Love, playing right here with the red Zerg drones. We have none other than Reynor and his opponent all the way in the opposite corner of the map with the blue Protoss pieces. He goes by the name of Showtime. Alrighty, this particular series was played recently during the Stara Zagora tournament, so an offline event. That means that both of the players here, they were indeed live at the venue. Although actually, from what I've heard, some of the games may have been played outside, because apparently there was some sort of outdoor section, I think, with like a roof above it or something along those lines. Either way, the players are probably able to glance at each other's, well, at least the back of each other's monitors. And that, of course, does create a very different atmosphere. That being said, though, both of these players, very experienced. Reynor, obviously, well, he doesn't have as many tournament series under his belt, if I were to make a guess. Mostly just because he's much younger than Showtime. Showtime has been playing for a very long time. Then again, though, Reynor is known to make very deep tournament runs. And while Showtime does do that as well from time to time, there is no denying that most of the time, Reynor, at least as far as tournament results go, he has been a little bit more successful. Either way, I'm not really expecting anything crazy here in the earlier stages of it. Showtime, of course, is a very macro-oriented player, and while Reynor is capable of doing some early game shenanigans, I consider Reynor, these days mostly like a mid-game player. That's something he has always been very, very fond of, and once upon a time, you could criticize him for not having strong late game. I think that these days, that is not a fair assessment anymore. Although there is no denying that Zerg players in the late game against Protoss, well, they don't really love it very much. They've been trying to avoid it, so wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of aggression, especially in like 5, 6, 7 minutes from now or so. But until then, we will likely see both of the players building up. And obviously, this phase of the game is extremely important. The fundamental strategies that you can go for later on in the game are all built off of what you do in the early game. So you can't really make any mistakes here. I know this is one of the parts of the game that a lot of people are like, let's just get it over with, right? But honestly, if you're trying to get better in StarCraft, if you're actually trying to improve at playing this game, nailing the first 5 minutes is probably the most important thing you can do. Because pre-5 minutes, there's very little interaction between units. But if you compare your own games to those of pro gamers, you will notice that a lot of them will have a way more supply than you do by minute 5, even though really nothing has happened as far as unit interaction goes yet. I mean, we're going to maybe see an Oracle, we're going to maybe see an Adept or two, but broadly speaking, you should be able to nail the first 5 minutes of the game perfectly every time. And I think if you actually draw some comparisons, so I've done this many times before in my own games, if you actually draw some comparisons, you may be surprised with how much stuff pro gamers are able to squeeze out in the earlier stages of the game. It's the little things that add up over time. Slightly faster mineral spending, slightly faster worker production, slightly faster drone stacking, for example, here. So what pro gamers generally try to do is force the close-by mineral patches first. Now, drones have a tendency to just sort of go around the mineral lines and find whatever rock is available, but obviously, you would benefit from having the close-by mineral fields mined first. If you can stack up the workers over there, initially, it is going to make the game just a little bit better. Either way, Oracle number 1 going across the map. We do have a small group of Zerglings. Third Nexus already coming up, 3.5 minutes. A very fast third Nexus here for Showtime, while still being able to send the Oracle across the map. Okay, 2 drones, not bad, although it did take quite a bit of hull damage. I don't hate it, mostly because of the timing here of the third. So this third base, as we play some Ring Around the Rosie, this third Nexus over here is so freaking quick. I've talked about it at length in the past, but back in the day, 5 minutes was the normal timing for a third Nexus. And Protoss players have been shaving a second here, a second there, to now, well, 3.5 minutes on the third Nexus, while still being perfectly safe. We did have a bit of a skirmish there between the Zerglings and the Adept, but with proper positioning, and especially now with that Oracle energy boost, right, that you can get from the Nexus, that got added, the energy recharge ability that got added in the most recent balance patch. Protoss players have been squeezing out just a little bit more juice in the early game, and, well, obviously if you have a clean early game, it is also much easier to build up towards the late game, and that is what a lot of Protoss players are very, very fond of at this point in time. So everything's going well here for Showtime. We're not going to go and skip the mid game, however. We will be going from an early game into now the Blink research, and then also the Forge. So +1 ground will probably be coming up here in just a moment. Showtime, by the way, is definitely somebody you can study if you're trying to get better at playing defensive StarCraft. Showtime is rock solid when it comes to just not dying in the first, I would say, like 10 minutes of the game. Which is something much easier said than done, because there's so many easy ways to accidentally lose, especially against a Zerg player. You gotta be extremely confident with the way that you maneuver around the map. So, the Oracles are gonna be joining the Stalkers, mostly just so the Zerglings can't just get an easy wraparound. +1 melee coming up here for Reynor. Stasis Ward on the bridge, I like it. Stasis Ward as well underneath the Stalkers right now. Reynor sees it though, and he decides to run it forward immediately. 4th hatchery coming up here on the right side. Lair just about to finish up. We do have a bunch of gas now added into the mix, but only 3 gas geysers in total. So we'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what the strategy for Reynor is going to be. Already though, Templar Archives, nice and quick. Protoss players have been growing more and more fond of that energy recharge ability on the Nexus. First with the Oracle start, then of course with, well, Hallucination Scouts in Protoss vs Terran. We saw it being used a lot as well on getting that Nexus even earlier, like in this particular game. And now, well, the next step is to start overcharging High Templar to get those storms out even quicker. Charge on the back of this, so yeah, this is not really an urgent play into late game. We may very well get there eventually, but if it's up to Showtime, he is just gonna slowly be building it up. While putting on a lot of pressure. I like this a lot so far, by the way. Like, this movement here is excellent. Not really taking any damage whatsoever. Both players actually microing well. But ultimately, right, we are building up towards a more sophisticated Protoss army with a very strong economy on the back of it. Robo Bay right now. Or Robo Facility, rather. Robo Bay maybe in a little bit. Additional gateways coming up. 4th Nexus starts up here all the way on the left side of the map. Reynor sees it immediately. Revelation, however, was thrown onto these Zerglings, so Showtime can actually see that indeed there are some units just about to reach his 4th. Blinks after them as well. Nicely done. Okay. Already, Hydra then, coming up. Hive, about, I want to say 40% of the way finished. Maybe into Lurkers. Probably makes the most sense here. We should see it. Yep, there we go. Lurker then starts up immediately upon the Hydra then finishing. I wouldn't mind, there we go, some of the Hydralisk upgrades too. Alright. Reynor very much so settling into a nice rhythm here as well. Trying to just, well, get that 4th base up and running. Get the gas geysers over here. We actually should add one more drone to this particular gas. Mostly just to saturate it optimally and to make sure that we can actually, well, get those Lurkers going properly. That's the main bottleneck with Lurkers. They're very, very gas heavy. So you need 4 bases in order to run it. Alright. There's 4 High Templar inside of this prism. Makes it an extremely valuable plane to snipe down here, but obviously it is going to make the High Templar a little bit more mobile. I love this though. Zergling run-bys is of course Reynor's bread and butter. He's been doing this for years, as we have one as well over in the natural. Probe tries to wall it fully off, but that's not going to happen. Showtime, rather than recalling home, decides to commit to the counterattack. Fair enough, but the natural is already gone down. 4th base, though, is falling on the other side of the map in the meantime. And suddenly, after an extremely passive earlier stages of this match, we suddenly have the gloves off as most of the Hydras here get stormed. Good dodges, though, by Reynor, it seems, as he walked away immediately. Very easy to accidentally lose sight of exactly what's going on. These roaches are going to be extremely nice, though, for the Zerg player from Italy, trying his best. Storm, though, once more gets dodged right there by Reynor, but he does not keep this 3rd hatchery alive as it also falls. And ultimately, we had a 3rd and a 4th going down for the Zerg. Protoss did take a lot of Protoss, or Probe losses rather, in the natural, but he now is a base up on the opponent. I would not mind seeing this Protoss player go home. He may feel the urgency, though, of committing here to an overextension, mostly because he did drop so low in the worker count. Alright, slowly starts rebuilding it, 3 probes at a time. Chrono Boost still extremely powerful, but I think, yeah, slowing the game down a little bit is actually totally fine here for Showtime. Problem is, Lurkers are now on the horizon, but, I mean, at this point, the 3rd is gone, the 4th is gone. He is re-establishing another expansion here up north, but the economy here for Reynor is certainly nothing to write home about, and, well, like I said, gas is really the main bottleneck. You can't really go into, like, for example, a Nidus network from here. He can barely afford lurkers as it is. He's gonna need a 4th base before that is once more a strategic choice that is actually valid. This choke point, though, is going to be very defendable, especially with Seismic Spines finishing up. We decide to commit. Oh my god, there's only a handful of lurkers. Has Showtime found the perfect opportunity? This is such a dangerous play, man. Pushing into sieged up lurkers, but he is not afraid whatsoever. Showtime. Ooh, I like this. In my mind, he's somebody that doesn't have a lot of urgency in his play, but you can tell here that he is feeling like he has got an opportunity to obtain the victory right here, right now. And you know what? He may just be right. 23 additional drones end up falling. Showtime is just happy to go for effectively a 3-base all-in after losing his 4th. Whew. Yeah, read his opponent like a book. He recognized that there wasn't enough gas for Reynor to be able to make that many lurkers. So he decided to commit. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on ley lines. Excellent game right there from Showtime. I thought for a second that he overextended. When he went across the map and he got counterattacked in 2 different places at the same time, but he managed that very, very well. And then furthermore, I really like that he did not he didn't get scared away by just a handful of lurkers. How many games have we seen where Protoss is very far ahead in the supply count, but they look at the games and they're like, oh god, there's a couple of spines coming out of the floor. There's lurkers nearby. I better back off and go into Skytles. Right? We've seen 100 games like that. Showtime, though, blinks in from a bit of an awkward angle, too, so I was ready to hold my breath there because that was a scary engagement, but honestly, he just dominated that fight. Nicely done. Very nicely done. It is one of those moments, though, where if there's like 2 additional lurkers in the mix and maybe Seismic Spines is like 5 seconds quicker, those type of engagements, yeah, can look very stupid for Protoss because suddenly you throw away a massive lead. So, can't really blame Protoss players for playing those moments safely, but yeah, Showtime managed it well. Alright. Now, he decided to send a probe straight across the map in this particular game. It means that the Zerg did not get their natural expansion going. Ooh, really? We commit here? Alright. I thought the Zerglings had the full wraparound. Not going to happen, it seems, but I believe both of these adepts will die. Yeah. Reynor always good with the Zergling control. 2 adepts for 2 drones, not ideal. Because now, yeah, we go for a slightly later 3rd than what we did in the previous game. And because those adepts have died, they can't be used for base defense. So it means that the Oracle has been taken up here in the natural and then in the 3rd base just to defend. So already I like this less for Showtime. It's by no means the end of the world, but being forced to activate the pulsar beam here on the Oracle, it means that it doesn't have as much energy. He can't possibly be killing drones right now on the other side of the map. It's perfectly playable. Reynor's trying to force the Oracles to activate their pulsar beam a 2nd time. He's like, come on, bro! Kill us! Come on! Do it! Activate the laser beam! It's a little upplay that Protoss players and Zerg players like to do. It's like a theatrical performance. Alright, well, now with a 2nd adept available, though. I like the positioning, by the way, a lot. This is not random. It's all to reduce surface area, so just a couple of Zerglings really can attack either of these 2 adepts. Little moves like that make all the difference. Alright, once more, Twilight Council together with a Forge, but he's only done a handful of drones worth of damage, and he did lose a bunch of those adepts too. Let's see, maybe the triple Oracle harassment can actually put in some work. Nah. The queens are already on the perimeter. Will it be +1 melee again, by the way, here for Reynor? Wouldn't be surprised. Okay, good movement. Excellent movement here by the queens. Yeah. Oh, nicely done by Reynor. Okay, this is when Reynor becomes exceptionally scary. Because Reynor hasn't really... He hasn't been halted in any way, right? Like, the creep spread is still going on, the expansion patterns can continue building up, we can just tech to whatever we like. And it's gonna allow Reynor to do whatever he pleases. In the previous game, his hand was sort of forced, rather. Where is he gonna go this time around? 4th hatchery comes up. We did have, by the way, +1 missile. Hydra then in the back of the natural. Obviously, Reynor, though, is now 1-0 behind in this particular series. Okay. Might be nice to note, by the way, that both of these players are now qualified for the EWC. Because of the recent series of tournaments that we've had in StarCraft 2, players have been trying their best to, qualify for the biggest tournament of the year, the Esports World Cup, which will be taking place, I think, in sometime in July. Maybe August? I'm not exactly sure on the dates. Anyway, both of these players have now managed to qualify, which is really nice to see. We've got quite a bit of variety, actually. A lot of Terrans, Zergs, and Protosses. Still quite a few seats up for grabs at this point in time, at least as of me casting it, so... It's nice to be able to secure a seat like that early, right? I mean, I think everybody would expect that, well, for example, Reynor would be able to make it there, but up until a few weeks ago, none of the names were decided yet other than Clem. Clem obviously winning the World Cup last year, managed to qualify for this year's World Cup because of it, but a lot of players, like for example Cero, like for example Maru, players that we expect to be there, they weren't qualified until very recently. We could have had some crazy upsets. I mean, it would have been very possible for some of the big names not to make it, but so far, it seems like at least most of the things are going according to plan. For the big names. Showtime actually last year, as we do have a little bit of a Hydra attack coming in. I'm gonna try to see if maybe he can distract his army a little bit. Wants to run in, not going to happen, but if it can distract here to kill the 4th Nexus, that would be massive. No, not going to happen. Showtime last year was one of the absolute last qualifications. If I'm not mistaken, he basically was one of the last 2 seats, and he got into the tournament in like the knockout stage. So he was basically there for like 1 or 2 best of 3 series, and that was about it. Spending an entire week at the tournament. To be fair though, at the EWC, even, you know, making it to last place is a very significant amount of money. So, you know, it was still worthwhile, I'm sure, but... It was kind of an unfortunate setup for him. I think this year he's gonna have a much better chance. Anyways, Fleet Beacon coming up right now. 2nd Stargate inside of the main base. Lurkers coming up. We've got ourselves a Spire on the production tab as well. Lurker range, that is, +1 melee. We are cruising into a late game. Okay. It would be amazing, actually, for Showtime to do really, really well during this particular EWC. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I've been very impressed by the way that Showtime is playing. Like, it feels to me like he's been playing this super methodical style for like a decade and a half. And, like, in the current meta, in the current patch of StarCraft 2, it is right up his alley. Like, I think everything that he's been working for over the last decade and a half, this might just be his, like, best opportunity to have a really good showing. Obviously, he's won a fair share of tournaments historically, but I think over the last few years, he's been overshadowed by some of the, especially the Terrans and the Zerg players in Europe, but then also, of course, MaxPax, an absolute monster. He's been stealing that Protoss crown as far as European Protosses go, but Showtime is still not somebody you can ever really count out. Alrighty, so, Nidus Network coming up. Hydra Dash. We've got ourselves a very complicated late-game army forming here for Reynor. I think that will suit Showtime just fine, though. I'm honestly surprised with the amount of Zerg players we still see comfortably getting towards this late-game army. I mean, I cast a lot of games, and we do see Zerg players winning the late game from time to time, but it is not entirely uncommon these days for the absolute top dogs to just get blasted in the late game. Reynor is perfectly capable of winning against Showtime in the later stages, but he also had a lot of opportunities in this particular game after the early game to go for something much more aggressive. He could have gone for a hyper-aggressive push, and maybe it took a little bit more effort there. Or maybe he's just respecting Showtime, right? Maybe he's saying, yo, Showtime, I mean, he's known as the Wall. He's not gonna be somebody I can easily break with a queen drop or anything along those lines. I may as well just play the late game instead, giving Showtime the benefit of the doubt. And obviously, right, if you are Reynor here, you're playing a best of 3. You really don't want to be losing game number 2 after getting ahead with a silly all-in. Maybe if this was game number 1 of the series, you would actually commit to something a little bit more dedicated. But no, we are really settling in. Look at that. Both players just building up a wall of static defense. Shield batteries and photon cannons for Showtime. We have spines and spores right here for Reynor. Anti-ground, anti-air, some shield regen. Yep. Additional photon cannons on the production tab right now too. Nidus worms though can backstab this quite nicely, right? So that Overseer just barely within range. I would imagine a... Oh, Tempest is going to be flying on over here in just a moment, just to get rid of that once and for all. New Nexus coming up in the top left-hand corner. Okay, Showtime is settling in, and he is effectively prepared here to just mine out his 50% of the map. He's saying, I know that I will trade more cost-effectively the longer the game goes on, most of the time. So, if I take 50% of the map, you take 50% of the map, I win. Well, it's going to be difficult. Against this many lurkers, with Nidus worms, they can very quickly go around the map. Secondary Spire, by the way, coming up here as well for the Zerg, so he's ready to start double upgrading. In the meantime, we have a Zergling run by up north. The mothership is set up in such a position that it can actually activate the cloaking upgrade if it's an absolute necessity. Don't think he needs to. Might be better off just activating it, though. Showtime, hello! Decides to cancel it? I'm very surprised. If he cancels it... Okay, we're gonna lose this base over here, too. If he cancelled, it meant that he was looking at that particular screen at that point in time. So he could have selected the mothership and activated the cloaking upgrade instead. That would have kept his Nexus alive no matter what, because there was no detection nearby for Reynor. So suddenly, Reynor, he gets... Well, he did multi-point aggression to try and get one of those 2 expansions, and he got both. Double upgrades continue on. Double upgrades as well for the flying units. Oh... Showtime is starting to fall apart. Yeah, Reynor trying to use some of that multitasking. I think that first game of the series may have angered him. Oh god, we just saw a recall, but where did the recall go? Well, he decided to go into the main rather than the natural. Fair enough. 646 average actions per minute here for the Zerg. This is what he's looking at. Trying to micro this to the best of his abilities, as now some of the Tempests seem to be sleeping on the job too. He's in such a nice position with those lurkers, though, that he really doesn't want to give up this spot. Let me go ahead and take control of the camera again. If he could get another High Templar or 2, that would be massive. No easy way for those units to retreat, but a couple of the Templar did die. Yeah, and suddenly, right? You blink twice. Reynor is miles ahead in this game. He will have to address the main army of the Protoss eventually. I find it unlikely that he is going to win this game without ever dealing with that army. But the thing is, at this point, he's got the opportunity to basically make this entire army of his right now. If you look at the army value and the resources available in the bank, he can effectively reproduce this exact same army twice. Well, he can reproduce it once, but he can use this army twice. And even though Zerg players generally do struggle dealing with the maxed out Protoss army, if you can get 2 armies to deal with the one, you're probably in a pretty good spot. Showtime needs to chill a little bit. I don't think he can really go in. Yeah. To be fair, Reynor's economy is decent. He's got 90 workers, which is a lot, but it kind of feels to me like he's not mining that much. Where are all of his workers at? Where are all the little workers? Am I crazy? He's got 90 drones? Is it just the accumulation over here? Yeah, I guess so. Alright. Well, we're only 15 minutes into it. It feels like this game has been going on for a little bit longer already, as so many of the bases have at least been touched by some of the workers. God, what is this fight over here, Showtime? Where are we going? Showtime hoping that maybe he can do some multi-pronged aggression, much like what we saw from the Zerg player earlier. I actually kind of like it. He decides to recall some of the troops away again. Ah, he recalled them in the direction of the mothership. That's what happened there. Okay, so feigning an overextension and now a recall all the way back home with the majority of the army. Showtime is trying to take up the entire map. Time warp to make it pretty much impossible for all of the lurkers to retreat. Do we have a blink? Well, I guess we only have 1 stalker. Yeah, there's like a couple of stalkers here in the mix. There we go. Going after the weakened units, hoping for a body block or two. Gets 2 more lurkers on his way out. Not every unit, though, fit inside of the recall circle, and that means that Showtime needs to be a little bit careful. Nice movement, though. He got an army and then also a base. Suddenly, Reynor's bank advantage is not that significant. Kill over here as well in this hatchery. Nice movement here by Showtime. Yeah. Maybe he got out multitasked for a little bit in the top left and also in the bottom section of the map, but I feel like right now he may just be able to find his groove again. Awkwardly enough, though, Showtime is maxed. And because he's maxed, he cannot warp in Zealots to deal with these handful of Zerglings. Purposefully overextending his army right now so he can actually warp in some units again. But I wonder if this is optimal. 14 probes fall. Immortal over here also gets surrounded. Obviously, he just used a recall on the Nexus, so it was still on cooldown. Okay, lurkers are being worked at. Another hatchery. Could be in a world of trouble. I'm a little concerned, though, for this positioning of Showtime, because here we go. Yep, this is the exact opportunity that Reynor's been waiting for. Without any Archons underneath and without any of the High Templar present, the Corruptors just destroy everything in the sky. And while we can have some Zealots going in for the counterattack, Lurkers and reinforcing Zerg units will easily make quick work of that. A lot of the Lurkers actually, or a lot of the Zealots rather, are currently fake. Little changelings sitting around. Those are commendable for the Zerg. And now the Corruptors go in with a massive caustic spray. Moments of brilliance right here from Showtime. But I think with that multi-pronged aggression from Reynor killing 2 bases, he is, being a little bit overly aggressive. You can now see it reflected in the supply count very, very clearly. Reynor really not making a lot of mistakes. Goes around the map. I mean, there's photon cannons everywhere, so he's looking for an opportunity to potentially kill another Nexus with caustic spray. 15 lurkers on the production tab. I think Reynor is just about ready to put the nail in the coffin. This is effectively the entirety of the Protoss army. Now, he doesn't have a greater... No, he does have a greater spire, okay. I didn't notice it on the production tab, but he did sneak one out. So you could always make some Brute Lords here, too. The Lurkers are now starting their slow advance towards this Nexus. Corruptors trying to see if maybe they can find a caustic spray. I mean, this is a valiant effort, and maybe there is enough for Protoss on the ground to deal with this, but this is only a part of the Zerg, and basically the entirety of the Protoss. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on Tokamak. It'll be the final map of this best of 3 series. And so far, look at that. It's like 2 dogs. So far, this series is very competitive. Yeah, Showtime is very much so a momentum-based player, right? When he gets the ball rolling, it's really, really nice. But when he's forced to try and catch back up and maybe catch the Zerg player off guard, it's extremely difficult to pull off. I think especially as Protoss, it's really tricky. Because you can really only effectively... Like, as far as, like, expendable units go, you really only have Zealots. If you lose any of your Zealots, though, yeah, you can replace them pretty easily, but they don't generally deal a ton of damage, especially when there's Lurkers and static defense and all that out. So you kind of need to send out Immortals, but Immortals really aren't a losable unit. It's a little bit different than, for example, for a Zerg player, right? You could always try to get back with, like, for example, a Ling Bane run-by. Those are units that are very expendable, and likewise with Terran, you could always go for like a medevac drop or something along those lines. Protoss doesn't really have that sort of luxury. It's the way, of course, that the race is designed. Robo units are amazing, but also very expensive. You could build multiple Warp Prism, I suppose, and then, yeah, it's tricky. Problem with Warp Prisms is that they take... Well, first off, they take quite a bit of supply. So you really can't have that many. And then secondly, of course, they're also gonna take up, well, production time inside of the robo facility. That's actually one of the main the main downsides of those units, right? Observers, Warp Prisms, all of it is amazing, but if you're spending time producing them in the robo facility, you're not using the robo facility for, well, for example, Immortal production. Anyway, it's always a little bit delicate. The best answer is to just simply not fall behind. Okay, Phoenix is now available as the very first unit. This is a little bit funky. Showtime has decided to go for a quick third Nexus, although not the quickest possible one. And then also a single Phoenix to begin this particular Stargate project. It means that an Oracle is produced here, but it's gonna be, well, forced for base defense again, as we saw 2 Adepts going down on the other side of the map. Very similar to what we had in the second game of the series. Okay, double Oracle, ready to go in. The one Phoenix start is a little bit funky. At the very least, it's gonna deny scouting here. But is Showtime the type of guy, okay, to mix it up? Apparently he is that guy. It's the most conservative switch up you can go for, you know? Like, this is by no means a double Tempest into straight, like, carrier production type of follow-up that we may see from some other Protoss players like, well, say SOS, for example. This is him going into charge rather than blink. And Reynor is gonna have to deal with this. It's nice, though, to see Showtime mixing this up. It basically means that he is gonna be playing the Gateway Man style. It can lead to Skytos eventually, but most of the time this is very much so the type of army that Protoss players use to try to out-Zerg the Zerg. So we're currently at 4 gates. We're gonna be at 8 here in total. No Robo facility, so it means that he's not gonna have a Warp Prism available. No Proxy Pylon on the other side of the map either, so he's not gonna be able to use that for quick reinforcements. Either way, look, this gas geyser is fake. Yeah, sorry for the guy that made the assimilator, but you are just here for aesthetic purposes. He's only mining 2 gas geysers in total. We may very well see another base here in a moment. Wouldn't be surprised. But here go the Zealots. And it's a lot of Zealots. This is an excellent Protoss build if you suck at micro. If you're like, dang, I really like macroing, but micro is not really... This is not an army that needs a lot of micro, okay? This is basically the moment where you attack move, and then you cross... you close your eyes, you cross your fingers, and you let Tassadar take the wheel. Nice positioning here by Reynor, though. Putting his units inside of that mineral line. Really reducing the surface area here, too, with those evolution chambers. Excellent crisis management here by Reynor. Look at that. He made a little room. Just one little bit of space here for those Zealots to fit in between. But it's giving so much more value to the handful of Zerg units that was here by the time the Zealots arrived. Whew. Dude, this may be the perfect defense here for Reynor, who was completely unaware of what was happening here. I mean, he's not out of the woods just yet. The Phoenix joining in as well. Contributing as much as possible. Here's the reinforcing Zealots showing up. Showtime just rallying Zealots from the other side of the map. Slowly but surely, though, Reynor's defensive unit count is growing. So, he's currently up to 9 roaches. The Zealots are in lesser numbers than that. Oracles are running out of energy. Phoenix is not going to be around for much longer. And that was a textbook defense right there by Reynor if you don't see this type of attack coming across the map until it already hits your front door. Like, that was excellent crisis management here by the Italian Zerg. He's gonna have to kill one of his precious wall-offs. This Evo Chamber. Shout out to the Evo Chamber. About as effective as that assimilator, but the assimilator now at the very least is gonna get mined. And Showtime did not build a 4th Nexus in the meantime behind this. So he was secretly hoping that this game would be over by now. But it isn't. Okay, so where do we go from there? Well, Reynor has decided now to go into the Roach Speed, the +2. Storm, by the way, on the back of this as well. This wasn't by any stretch of the imagination a... I need to win the game right now, but I do believe that Showtime was hoping he was going to be able to kill at least the workers on one of the Zerg expansions. He's still sitting with an economy, though, of 69 workers, and I do believe that to be quite nice. Roach Speed is going to be a big one. If Reynor can just make a lot of units and go across the map with this upgrade finishing up, it is going to hit very hard. Then again, Storm is finishing. Even though Roaches aren't really that amazing of a target for Storm. I mean, it's mostly just their HP count, so Storm deals 80 damage, a Roach has 145 HP. Storm can still work. Reynor even going into the Tunneling Claws together with Burrow. Hydra then coming up together with an Infestation Pit. I am surprised that Reynor is not actually going across the map. I think we should. I mean, there's a bunch of units for defense, but... Okay, he is going to test the waters at least on the right flank. Okay. Seems like Reynor has decided that the Hive play is the way to go. So I think we're going to go Hive Lurker Den. Yep, there we go. Hive Lurker Den indeed coming up. Oracle has found the half of the Zerg army. What about the other side, though? Reynor hoping that he can maybe pull his opponent apart. I do quite like this, actually. Needs to be careful, though, that he doesn't overextend. And so far, Showtime has done an excellent job splitting his units up. Storming some of his own zealots, but at the very least, it's enough to scare away those roaches. And even though Reynor had a massive supply advantage, this is some of those... Yeah, those roach armies, right? They always... Your army supply count looks a little bit inflated. They're pretty supply heavy. They're really not that good. Alright. Immortal production now. Showtime navigating his way from a Zealot all-in into now a pretty solid economy. With Storm, double Immortal. Fleet Beacon on the back of this as well. Okay. What about this fight? Now a bunch of Hydras have joined in the fray too. I don't believe it to be enough though. Man, remember when the energy recharge ability was first discussed? Back in the end of last year, and everybody was like, well, without the shield battery overcharge, Protoss can never hold on to an expansion ever. I feel like Protoss can be more defensive than ever before, man. Maybe as a ladder hero, that's kind of true, but the top level Protoss players get so much value out of that energy recharge ability. Be it Stasis Wards, be it High Templar, we rarely see it being used on the shield battery, which is what everybody sort of thought was going to be the main use case of that energy overcharge ability. We rarely see it used there. But Protoss looks very well walled off and, well, very well defended. And look at this. He's ready to go in for another attack right now. Reynor committing to a counter, though, on the other side. Showtime might be able to kill the hatch and go home. Okay, one Immortal gets surrounded. Nice move right there by Reynor, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just recalls. Just recall? Yeah. He decides to recall. Most of the units do manage to go home. Not all of it. But that's going to be more than enough to scare away this Roach hit squad. And where do we end up? Well, Showtime killed a hatchery. Reynor killed nothing. Brilliant stuff. Mothership coming up. Tempest production has begun. Second Stargate on the production tab as well. We do have those lurkers out now, and Nidus network is, well, going to be an option here for the Zerg in just a moment. Fifth Nexus, okay. I was wondering, we've seen a lot of Protoss players sit around on 4 Nexi for quite a while. Players like, for example, Zaun don't seem to have a lot of urgency in taking a 5th. Showtime, though, taking the 5th at a more ordinary timing, but I mean, we did recently see Zaun do extremely well against the likes of, for example, Serral. Anyway, constantly clearing out the creep as well. Man, I really feel like Protoss players have stepped it up over the last year. Like, across the board, they're way more active on the map. It's a lot less of that turtley style. And just in general, it's a lot more multitasking, right? Like, we've moved from this big deathball-y type of army into a lot more of this. High Templar throwing water balloons at a... Okay. at a hatchery. I really like it. I think it's cool. Not enough energy for a storm on that Templar. Maybe we can still hit the hatchery, though. Nidus worm in the back. Okay. Well, this is going to make the game a lot harder. We already have some photon cannons being set up around the base, though. Showtime felt that this was coming, and he knew that he was going to need to do something. Remember, in the second game of this series, Reynor suddenly hit his opponent at a multiple angles, and... Well, he got a couple of bases because of it. It's absolutely critical that Showtime does not crumble under the multitasking here. And this is where that APM difference can sometimes be quite significant. Even though Showtime is by no means a slow player, Reynor is just an absolute speed freak. Still, look at this. He's just about to be attacked on the right side of the map. He's like, perfect, I'm going to use half of my army to attack up north. He can always recall to the Nexus. He can always recall to the Mothership. Nexus recall is available. Good Storm. What about the fight over here? Yeah, not quite enough. Not quite enough. So we do recall now. And guess what? With all of the units present in this particular fight, he knows that half of the Zerg units are now occupied in the top section of the map. He can easily get rid of all of these units at his front door. Constantly using those recalls on the Nexus, but also on the Mothership, basically on cooldown. It's really neat. Now, this might be a spot where you do want to put up another photon cannon, just because this is now the second time that Reynor decides to put down a Nidus worm in this exact position. Bunch of lurkers are here. Do we have any detection? Looks like there is detection. It's that photon cannon, I think, that was within range. And there's still a couple lurkers remaining. And here we go again. This is, of course, the real strength of those lurkers in the Nidus worm. It's not so much the unit damage, but it's the amount of APM that it takes to try and clean all of this up. Showtime's still forced to spend like 100 actions here in total to try and deal with that lurker run by. Reynor just unloaded the Nidus and burrowed. That's it. Little Zergling run by over here too. We have another Nidus worm again in that exact same spot. And this is going to be annoying for Showtime, but he's not falling apart like we saw in the previous game. He still has a stellar economy. He still has his 5th base up and running. He hasn't really lost a lot of workers in the process. Can we just put down a photon cannon here somewhere? No? Okay. Lurker count, by the way, has grown to 21. 21 lurkers. I mean, there's only 4 Tempests. It's not the end of the world. Does he have a Spire? Yeah, he did build one inside of the main base. +2 air weapons, actually, already about to finish up. And we even have a second Spire now coming. Quite like it. Tricky map, though, here. For Protoss in general. Those bases are very far apart. Not sure about the exact win-loss ratios, but in general, these large maps, they tend to favor the Zerg a little bit more. Although maybe with this mass recall style, right? Maybe you can actually get a lot of value out of it. Maybe taking this base is the more logical one. Difficult call to make, though. Like, where do you expand to next? Reynor already has this forward base. And he's protecting the expansion here from any attacks from the back by having the lurkers in that spot. And he's now also taking the exact opposite corner of this spot that Showtime tried to take earlier. Burrowed Zerglings, by the way, are mostly just here to make sure that we have vision for more Nidus worms. So you do, of course, need vision to be able to plant down a Nidus network. And there's just constant changelings, constant Zerglings all over the map. Reynor forcing his opponent to play Nidus whack-a-mole. Nidus worms are not free. They're not particularly expensive, but you do spend gas on it every single time. And that is the main bottleneck here. You can see it reflected right now in the resource count over here at the bottom of the screen. Showtime has a gajillion gas. Reynor, I mean, not poor. What about this attack, though? Yeah, this is looking a lot more serious now. Reynor is at 92 workers. Here we go again. Protoss going in for the counterattack. Natural expansion is wide open in a second with all of these units working away at the wall. This expansion is irrelevant for Reynor. I mean, it's still nice for position, I suppose, but there's no mining going on here. He's planting down a network in the, well, natural expansion of the opponent. I think this is mostly just to get the army units back home if he feels like he needs to maneuver them back. Fight over here has been cleaned up. 30 probes have died. Not a single drone has fallen, though, during this exchange, and Reynor is finding himself in a better and better position. Every time I look at the production tab and every time I look at the amount of resources in the bank. This many lurkers, man. There's 17 of them. It's so difficult to break. 42 workers. Ay, ay, ay. 43. Absolute disaster here for Showtime. His army is massive, though. Yeah. And you know what? The Mothership itself, keep in mind, she deals way more damage than she ever has. The most recent balance patch saw to that. It's something that is often forgotten, but the mothership itself is actually a unit that needs to be respected now. Still though, lurkers on the ramp is always tricky. The flying units they cannot reach, but so much damage is being done in the meantime. And again, we have some of the Zerg units split off from the main pack, going towards the bottom right-hand corner, as Reynor is tearing his opponent's army apart. That being said, Showtime has decided to remake very few of his workers. He's at a worker count right now of just 39, so that means his army is massive. His army right now, as a matter of fact, is about, I want to say 50% bigger than that of the Zerg. A little bit less. The values change all the time as I'm speaking, but the army here is certainly not something you want to scoff at. If Showtime can put it all together and actually force an engagement on the other side of the map, Reynor could still be in a world of trouble. Showtime remaking the bases in the far bottom right. He did get this expansion here as well in the bottom right corner up. Reynor's decided to go way more lurkers. Okay, good spot for them. And now also corruptors are coming up. Little zealot run by towards the top left. I love this from Showtime. This is going to force a lot of split attention. And now it's Showtime's turn to start knocking down some of those bases. Reynor may have just killed a bunch of expansions on the other side of the map, but he is gonna pay the price for it right now. It does mean that he's got the benefit of about another minute or two of mining. Question is, can Reynor deal with this army? I mean, there are a gajillion lurkers. Lurkers are all over the map. Oh. Trying to hit a couple of the storms as well as the corruptors are misrallied. Slowly but surely, Showtime rebuilds the economy. New mothership coming up. We have a new Templar Archives, a new Nexus as well. Okay. Showtime has done a little bit of creep clearing. He knows that there are no expansions over here. He knows that there's very little mining going on in that area of the map. So he sets his sight over, in the top left-hand corner. 41 drones, by the way, on that expansion. That's a juicy target. Corruptors? Do we have any Vipers? No, no Vipers at this point available. That would be phenomenal, although feedback is still something that needs to be taken into consideration. Showtime decides to go for another base as well. Okay, as he recalls his army towards the Nexus, and it seems like the dust has settled after those, 5 minutes or so of non-stop action. Where do we find ourselves? Well, both players have massive armies. Reynor has a ton of minerals. No, not a very high amount of gas, but still a respectable amount of gas. Showtime has a stupid amount of gas, but no minerals. Okay, so who benefits this more? Obviously, as Protoss, you can always do a gas dump by making more Archons. Archons are basically all gas, and they're a phenomenal unit. Reynor, though, has a good ratio, so he can make whatever he likes. His upgrades are looking pretty good, although I wouldn't mind seeing that second Spire swing into effect as well. Bunch of Zealots running away. Showtime is slowly making his way to the top left. He's now been scouted, though. Hydra's coming in around the back, it seems, trying to see if he can maybe shut down the mining on that particular base. Ooh, really? Now we get scared away from this? He doesn't know how many lurkers there are. Always a difficult call to make. Seems like a very attackable base, though. Zerglings, get around. I like it. Nidus worm in the far bottom right. A couple of Zealots desperately try to see which one of the Zealots is real, so they can actually force them to sidestep. Yeah, look at this one Zealot constantly charging around, just not finding an angle to actually be attacking from, but the Nidus worm is empty anyways. Seems like it's bait. This expansion should be an easy kill for Showtime, as now the Tempests are within range. Keep in mind that the main base is still here, right? Like the main base, it is completely disjointed from all of the other Protoss expansions, but it is important. Ooh, overextension here by Reynor, though. Accidentally flies those units a little bit too far forward. Loses a handful of Corruptors. Maybe 2, maybe 3. Okay. New mothership, by the way, has been patrolling here together with a High Templar. That was my favorite children's book growing up. The Mothership and the High Templar. Beautiful story. Heartwarming. There's the cloak. That's what we needed to see in the previous game. Yeah. It's a guaranteed save against a Zergling run-by. One thing, though, that is missing here for Reynor, if I am not entirely blind, is adrenal glands. He doesn't have adrenal glands. So he's missing out on a bunch of Zergling speed on these units. And that is going to be painful. I mean, he is sending loads of lings around the map. I wouldn't say they're really like his main source of damage. But at this phase in the game, there is zero reason not to have adrenal glands done. Yeah, it comes down to the main fights. Reynor's constant harassment is nice. But I think Protoss has been all over it. Showtime doing a good job controlling it. And I really do like the amount of High Templar that he's constantly been using here. What about these Corruptors? Can they actually kill a Mama ship? We have a Storm. We have a bunch of Archons, but yep. The Stepmother ship is not going to be around for much longer either. Big Zealot warping inside of the main base. Reynor just has completely forgotten about adrenal glands. Whenever I make a claim like that, I'm always looking at the upgrades tab about 17 times just to make sure that there really isn't an adrenal glands. Sometimes I miss things that are in the middle of my screen, but no. As far as I can tell, there's no adrenal glands on that tab. Okay. Reynor decides to go into a more sustainable army now. Yeah, Reynor's going green. He's going Brute Lords. And generally, they can be around for a little bit longer. We may very well see some Infestors in a moment. Okay. +1 air weapons. Very, very late. This game is all over the place, though, and I gotta hand it to the both of them. The fact that they are still able to keep their heads cool and think clearly in these extremely chaotic situations is amazing to me. It's super easy for one of the two players to crumble under the pressure, but neither of them really finding that just yet. Showtime tries to steal a base over here, does snipe 2 expansions in the meantime in the top left-hand corner. It means that Reynor's economy has been halted to a trickle, but what about this overextension? He saw an opportunity. Storms do go down, though, and at least the Corruptors get forced away. Brute Lords and Corruptors don't care about the surface area on the ground. Looks like actually Showtime didn't lose that much during that particular fight. It looked more dramatic than it actually was, but that could have been a disaster as he remakes the base that ordinarily would be considered to be a base of the Zerg. Okay. Reynor's missing out on spellcasters. He doesn't have a whole lot of them. Has he made any of them really? No. No Vipers, no Infestors at all, and those are generally... That is a little bit awkward. Those are generally an absolute key resource in the late game. Reynor, though, going for the more Sue-esque approach, right? No spellcasters. Instead, we are just trying to hammer it home. Another hatchery goes down in the top left. Another Nexus goes down in the bottom right. This expansion over here has also been denied as there's a probe and a drone trying to figure out which of them will be first to take in that base. Still, though, if you look right now at the resource counts, Showtime has taken those expansions in the bottom right-hand corner much later than Reynor took the expansions over here, and it means that there's just way more value. Big Stalker warp in. I really like that Showtime doesn't immediately max out. It's a big bait to just max out immediately and not have the opportunity to, well, warp in some of the reinforcements that you need. Showtime now double expanding, by the way. Trying to retake some of those sections of the map. Reynor sees it, and suddenly, man, Showtime has been taking base after base after base. He's been canceling them, so it's not really that costly. But Reynor keeps on killing them. There's another one coming up. This one is gonna get cancelled. There's another one over here as well, though, on the right side of the map. Reynor's already successfully killed this at least twice. But now he's got a bit of a slower army. It's going to be Brute Lord Infestor with Corruptors and Zerglings for support. And again, the Zerglings do not have adrenal glands. I don't know if it really matters. I mean, obviously you need to have it at some point in the game because they deal a lot of damage, but they've just been used for run-bys for the most part. There hasn't really been like a ton of static defense in their way. Anyway. Showtime's army is looking monstrous. Yeah, he has once more overtaken the supply count of the Zerg. Some nice storms here as well. Gets rid of a bunch of those units, but a good fungal growth by Reynor. Reynor is, he's broke. Like, this is a real issue for him. 7 Brute Lords, 13 Lurkers, 21 Corruptors, 3 Infestors. I mean, it is an army. But I feel like if Showtime plays this intelligently, he can shut that down. Little Zergling over here. Trying his very best. Zergling run by over here as well, trying to go after this base that Showtime took at about 3.5 minutes. It's a long time ago at this point. Forced to remake it. Ooh, Brute Lords, a little overextended. Where's the Corruptors? Where is the Infestors? Reynor needs to be so careful. All the Zerglings are burrowed in the meantime inside the main base as he decides to run back home. Okay. Yeah, I love that Showtime looked at the situation and rather than be overly greedy or overly aggressive, he decides to chill. And I feel like chilling here is the best thing he can do. He doesn't really need to do too much. He knows that there's very little mining going on right now for the Zerg. There's still some mineral fields available, but there really can't be much. Obviously, he doesn't have a ton of mining of his own either, but he knows that his income is going to be outscaling that of the Zerg quite significantly. Yeah, there we go. Look at the income advantage. 5 minutes ago or so is when Showtime started slowing down, and I love it. What about this fight over here? As we have another fungal growth coming up. These couple of mined out mineral fields, really a bit of a nuisance. Oh, High Templar, careful. Don't overextend there, please. Because of the Zerglings once more being a pain in the butt. Corruptors trying to swoop in now, but every time they get close, High Templar are going to be within range too. I believe Showtime should knock down the cooling towers to destroy some of the blue mineral fields. For some reason, it's not something we see players ever really employ, but it's very powerful. It's only part of the Protoss army, by the way, as once more, the Brute Lords are distracted. And if the Brute Lords are chasing this army over here, it means that the Oracles, together with the Tempest, can actually put in a lot of work. Nice cloaking field again. We don't have an Overseer nearby. Looks like the Brutes are halfway to chasing that army towards the bottom right. They need to be careful. This is not really a unit that can easily reposition itself. Showtime is setting up another base over here as he is methodically starting to disassemble this Zerg player. I really like the way that he's closing this out. We have a big recall though. Oh, okay. We're once more setting ourselves up for a base race. I feel like there's a lot more to gain here for the Zerg player than there is for the Protoss, but either way, Showtime is feeling like he's got enough, and I wonder if this is the right move for him. He's going to be able to shut down at least one of the mining bases here of the Zerg, but he's also losing what looks like 2 of his own, although, okay, one of them has fallen, the other one just lost a bunch of workers, 34 probes have died. Drones in the meantime in the top left-hand corner, desperately looking for a place to burrow. Doesn't look like they're gonna get it. In the meantime, the Stalkers blink underneath the Brute Lords. Quite a few of the Brutes have died, but of course, yeah, eventually the Brutelings are gonna be able to obtain the win in that particular fight. It's only 3 Brute Lords now that do remain, and there is a hell of a lot of Protoss still available in the top left. That is hatchery number 2 that falls here for Showtime. And keep in mind, Showtime does have this base ready to go right now. I don't even know if Reynor is aware of it. No, he's seen it, but he hasn't had a time to, or really an opportunity to try and deal with it. That means that this is the final mining base here for Reynor. Reynor has 7 drones, 5 drones. There's very little going on. Obviously, Showtime doesn't know exactly how much the Zerg player has, but he's checking this base out. He knows that the top left is no longer mining. He knows that this one is completely run dry. Yeah, and this is Showtime slowly tightening the noose. Man, I really like the pacing here from Showtime. Some great feedbacks as well. Ooh, beautiful, beautiful. Great engagement. I like that he backed up. Time warps defensively, cloaks defensively too. No opportunity for Reynor to really grab it. He was hoping that maybe he could get a massive run-by here on this army. Well, there's no detection available, and at this point he can't even really afford a Overseer anymore, which is a little desperate. So he needed to wait until the cloaking field ran out. GG, well played, gets called. As Showtime absolutely nails it in the final game of this series. He had some Relatively clumsy overextensions in the second game, but I feel like across the board, the man was in control.